In this video, I'm going to give you 2 examples of a low intensity strength session for those days when you're just not feeling it. One with equipment and the other with just your body weight. Some days you just don't feel like working out. But how you feel going into a training session won't always affect your performance. So you shouldn't adjust your training on the fly just because you feel a certain way. Say you've just done your normal prep and you notice, oh man, I'm still feeling a bit run down and I kind of feel that my movements are a bit slower than usual. That's cool. Here's what you do next.
Okay, so here's how I'd put together a low intensity workout with equipment. I'll explain each move after I show you the whole thing. Start off with hanging. Then move into twisting bear, some bodyweight squats, and then finish up with ring reverse rows.
All right, so if you've got something to hang from, that's what you can do, is practice hanging. The cool thing about practicing hanging is where you're looking at how you're feeling that day. You're actually just trying to feel things out and just get better at hanging. So your practice could be a variation of a hang. It could just be going side to side, hanging out here, just for a little bit until you feel pretty good there. You let go, take a little break, shake things out, and then you do it again. How can we use today's low intensity session in a way that's going to be good for us, that we can learn and then apply that for later? Do that and you're always going to be improving. That's the name of the game. Then what we can do is we can maybe move on to a push session. And just because this is a low intensity session doesn't mean that we still can't push ourselves. It's just how you push yourself that day. You're going to take the intensity down. You're going to use a movement that's going to be good for you in the sense that it's a movement you're extremely comfortable with. And the goal here isn't to see how many reps that you can crank out. It's focusing on the quality of the movement. In this case, maybe looking at the twisting bear. Let's say that we do this for 45 seconds. Just going up and down the mat at a slower pace, at an intensity that's going to be good for us. It's going to allow us to improve our strength. It's going to improve our mobility as well as control when we're working on this movement. Then take a look at, after 45 seconds or however long you set your timer for, moving into another exercise. And in this case, let's say that we do bodyweight squat. Okay? So this is a movement that we already know, we have a great handle on. And rather than just cranking out reps, we focus on quality of movement, the position that we're in when we're going into this squat. Trying to go as deep as we can, looking at how we adjust ourselves as we come up out of the squat. Are our knees buckling in? Do we find that one knee shifts? Bringing awareness to what's going on in our body when we're performing the movement, trying to learn from it. And that's kind of the name of the game when we're trying to do everything, is bring better awareness. Again, is going to help us for when we move back and start working more difficult movements. It's going to help us to bring better awareness. So then let's say you finished up with that 45 seconds on that one. We can move back. We can look at, in this case, we've got some rings. We can look at doing reverse rows. I'm just going to focus on what's going on in my body when I'm performing these rows. Slowing them down. Not a matter of just cranking out reps, but trying to go at a pace that's going to allow me to continue to do this for 45 seconds. But not at a level where it's crushing me that day. So this, again, is just an example of some movements that you can use if you have an equipment. You start off with that hang, move over to the twisting bear, do some bodyweight squats there, and then finish up your push with some reverse rows. Now, before we move on to the next example, there have been so many days where I didn't feel like working out or going to my martial art practice, but I showed up and ended up having a great session. That's why it's so important to at least step on the mat and start your prep work, and why you should always use autoregulation. So autoregulation is a fancy term for adjusting your workload within each training session based on how you're performing relative to previous sessions. You change your intensity and volume of your training that day based on how difficult it is compared to how you've performed before. And as I mentioned earlier, it isn't based on how you feel. It's based on the actual performance of the exercises at that time. Even on those days you don't feel like working out, at least start your prep so you don't cheat yourself out of training. Seriously, get on the mat, do your prep, and then see how it's going. That way you can decide if you actually need an active recovery session where you do something outside of the program protocol or a low intensity session within the program. And this is exactly how we do it in our GMB programs, which you can find over at gmb.io. We start with prep, and then we ask you to check your readiness based on that. If you feel good, you continue as planned. If you're not up to that, well, we give you the option for a lower intensity session that still lets you make progress. You're still getting in work by practicing the exercises and focusing on quality reps for each movement. The only thing is, it's just done at a lower intensity. All right, so this is the last example just in case you don't have a bar to hang from.
Start off with kneeling push-ups. Do some front scales. And then finish up with a hollow body hold.
We're going to start off by practicing the push-up. Now, we're focusing on practicing. And so the goal here isn't how many reps we can do, it's how beautifully can we perform a single repetition. I'm actually going to do it for my knees. And a lot of people might think, oh, those are actually too easy. Well, the thing is, remember, we're practicing, but the other thing about this is rather than making it about that intensity, it's looking at how we can improve it for next time. So for example, this time focusing on rotating so that the elbow pits are facing forward, making sure that we don't flare the elbows. Then from here, maybe just focus on seeing how slow you can go down in this position. Seeing what's going on. Are you keeping the shoulders over your hands, elbows in? Oh, maybe if I squeeze my butt, that would actually make it harder, okay, or maybe easier. And then the other thing that we can add in here is a little different than before is that we can look at play. And this time I'm going to stand up and I'm going to look at performing a single leg balance. It's going to be really similar to what I just did in that it's not a matter of the repetitions, but what's going on in the movement when I'm doing it. Rather than just shoving my leg out in front, trying to hold it, I can actually focus on keeping my foot low. What's going on now with my upper body in relation to the lower body? If I bring my arms out, if I have my hands up, how does it feel? Maybe I turn the hands over. I'm playing around with different positions, but using a particular variation of this that's at a quite low level. Explore this position. Play and this exploration allows me to learn more about the position in a safe manner so that then I can start to challenge myself in a variation of that later when I go back and add more intensity into the session. We can then finish up with a push. And in this case, yes, we are going to push ourselves, but the lower intensity might just mean that we use a movement that isn't as difficult for us. It could be like a hollow body position. Instead of full hollow body position, hanging out here. And you can actually take this 45 seconds and start out maybe in this position, really focusing on your form when you're doing it, pulling the knees back a bit as the time moves closer to that 45 seconds so that it's not at an intense level like you would normally push yourself just trying to hold this for as long as possible. So just a couple examples there of what you could do with just body weight when you don't have something where you can focus on a pull or a hang. And there you have it. Low intensity sessions can be a great way to still get in some work and continue to improve because you didn't skip your workout that day. Be sure to check out our article on autoregulation with more examples, link in the description.